Hello, once again. I'm Pastor Jeremy Combs here at the Lyford Bible Baptist Church. Grab your Bible. We're in 2 Samuel chapter 17. Things are spiraling into motion. David is on the run. The enemy has devised a plan. They have rejected the wise counsel of Ahithophel because David's planted insider, Hushai, has caused them to pump the brakes, to say, let's wait, let's assemble the army. Why did Hushai say that? David needs time. David needs to get space. David needs to regroup. David needs to formulate a plan. Sometimes when you feel overwhelmed in life, the best thing you can do is give yourself time. Don't make a hasty decision. Now, I have to say this on the other side. Sometimes we lose victory because we're not hasty. We're not prudent in our decisions. I thought, when I think about Ahithophel and I think about him saying, let's go, let's do it now, and Absalom says, no, let's wait. I thought a lot about the Civil War in the North and how Lincoln was so frustrated with many of the generals early on until he got to Grant, because they were known for just stopping and waiting and devising plans instead of pushing ahead and seeing victory. And so there's a lot of balance there, discernment between when do I push forward in the Lord's strength and wisdom, and when do I say, no, I need to take a step back and I need to regroup. Well, now we get into a little bit more of political inciting here, a little bit of spying. We find verse 14, then said Hushai unto Zadok and to Abiathar the priest, thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel, Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus have I counseled. So it appears that Hushai did not know what direction they were going to go, but as soon as he leaves the meeting, they're probably still putting their heads together, Absalom and his men, and saying, what are we to do? He runs or gets to Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, who are loyal to David, and he says, we've got to get word to David. Here's the two plans that are on the table. Ahithophel's plan, which it will happen immediately, and we need David to know that, or if they will go with mine, we've got a little bit of time, but you always have to plan for the worst, okay, and expect the best. And we find that they're going to plan for the worst. He says, now therefore, send quickly and tell David, verse 16, saying, lodge not this night in the plains in the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up, and all the people that are with him. He says, don't wait across the river. Wait across the river even tonight in case something happens, because it takes time to ford a stream, to ford a river. And he says you need that extra time. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed by in Rogel, for they might not be seen to come into the city. And a wench went and told them, and they went and told King David. Now, what happens here is there's two men, sons of the priest, Jonathan and Ahimaaz. They decided that they would go and they'd be the messengers. It'd be very conspicuous to have the priests go, but oftentimes the sons would run errands or maybe send messengers out for the priests. And so they're the likely candidates to go and to find David and to tell him what is going on. Unfortunately, even the best of plans sometimes can hit a snag. Verse 18, nevertheless, a lad saw them and told Absalom. But they went both of them away quickly and came to a man's house in Bahurim, which had a well in his court, whither they went down. And the women took and spread a covering over the well's mouth, and spread ground corn thereon, and the thing was not known. So there's a well, and apparently sometimes what they would do is they would spread a cover over the well, and then you would put grain, and it would help to dry the grain out. Sometimes this would happen with unused wells, and so what they did here was, as a disguise, they put them in the well, they put the cover over, put the grain on top. That way someone is not going to want to move what's happening here. And so they've got these men hidden. And the woman took, and we say she spread the covering, verse 20, and when Absalom's servants came to the woman to the house, they said, where is Ahimaaz and Jonathan? The woman said unto them, they be gone over the brook of water. And when they had sought and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. He says they're over the brook of water, which obviously they're over a brook of water. And you say, but Pastor, isn't that telling a lie? Well, the Bible doesn't, again, condone this, but they are actually over the water, okay? And that's where they're hanging out. But she says that obviously to throw off Absalom's men who are seeking to destroy These men are who are going to warn David. And once they're gone and they return, then these men are free to go. And it came to pass, verse 21, after they were departed, that they came up out of the well and went and told King David, and said unto David, Arise, pass quickly over the water, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. Then David arose, and all the people that were with him, and they passed over Jordan. By the morning light there lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. So David, unlike his son Absalom, when he receives advice, receives it and goes. Okay? And he does something that's not very easy. It wasn't easy for these spies to escape. It's not easy for David and his band of maybe about 1,000 men, women, and probably some children to ford or to cross a river in the dark. Okay? Hard in the day, even more difficult at night. But David does it because he has recognized the danger that they are in. Verse 23, and when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass, and he arose. He got him home to his house, to his city, put his household in order, and he hanged himself. And he died and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Well, what happened to Ahithophel? Well, he has been rejected. There's a couple of factors here. There's pride. Once you've been rejected and everybody's gone around saying your counsel wasn't as good as some upstart named Hushai, in that kind of a business, your career would be seemingly over. There's also the fact, probably Ahithophel, with his wisdom, could see the writing on the wall and recognize Absalom is a fool. He won't listen. He's going to be rash, and he's going to be defeated. When David returns, David is going to take vengeance on everybody that has rebelled against him, and I will be put to death. So I'm just going to take care of things. So he goes home, and being the wise person that he is, he gets his household in order. Wise thing to do. It's always wise to have the affairs of your home in order. Then he does the most foolish thing we could ever do, and that is he goes out and he hangs himself. He takes his own life. We would say it this way: he commits suicide. And God's given you your life, and the most foolish thing you could ever do is shorten it. In fact, because of his pride, we find that, again, he overestimates himself. He underestimates people. He underestimates David. David's going to return, and there's not some bloody vendetta that takes place as David returns. David forgives a lot of the people, Shimei, others who have really wronged him. And could he have completely? We don't know, but there is a fair possibility that if Ahithophel would have humbled himself and said, David, I was wrong, and could confess, at worst, he could probably be just sent home and would just live out his days in isolation. But again, I see a lot of pride as well in Ahithophel, where he's not one to go off in the scene and be a nobody with nobody listening to him. He had to be number one. And so obviously there can only be one number one. And so when he no longer was number two, he wasn't going to live that way any longer. And so very selfishly, he snuffs out the life that God had given him. Can I tell you, we should never, ever do that. That's not the unpardonable sin. You can be a believer and take your life and still go to heaven. Ahithophel is, if he's in hell today, is not in hell because he killed himself. He's in hell because he rejected God and his plan of salvation. However, say we are believers, we go to heaven, yet we've taken our life. We have to give an account of our life and to stand before God one day knowing that we decided our feelings, what we thought was more important than performing God's will be a sad, sad day. And Ahithophel, if he was a believer, and I pray that he was, has had to do that. We go on to verse 24. Then David came to Mahanaim, and Absalom passed over Jordan, he and all the men of Israel with him. That Mahanaim is fascinating, that this is the spot where they're preparing, because it's the same spot where Esau and Jacob, it means two camps, came back. And remember, Jacob thought Esau was going to kill him, and Esau came and made peace. Well, unfortunately, there's not going to be any peace here. It's going to be not just brother against brother, it's going to be father against son. And we find in Absalom made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab, which Amasa was a man's son whose name was Ithra, an Israelite, that went into Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister of Zeruiah, Joab's mother. And so we find that there's still a connection, even with Amasa. He's a relative, a distant cousin, and yet he replaces Joab. Obviously, Joab's not there. Joab's in the camp of David, and you've got to have your lead general. So Absalom, maybe even as a spurn for Joab. Remember, these guys have gone back and forth. He burned the fields of Joab. He tricked Joab into getting him to come back. Maybe to kind of rub salt into that wound, Absalom appoints Amasa. So Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. And it came to pass, when David was come to Mahanaim, that Shobai, the son of Nahash of Reba, of the children of Ammon, and Maker, the son of Amiel of Lodabar, and Barzillai, the Gileonite of Roglim, brought beds and basins and earthen vessels, and wheat and barley and flour and parched corn and beans and lentils and parched purse and honey and butter and sheep and cheese of kine for David and for the people that were with him to eat. For they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. And so David is down, but he's not out. He still has loyal subjects. He still has friends and people that are wanting to help David, wanting to protect God's man. And David is going to be, it's kind of as we finish up chapter 17, it's going to be okay. And we're going to get into chapter 18 next week, and we're going to see the battle commences. And it's a battle between Joab and Absalom. And boy, it's a dog-eat-dog battle. And even Joab is not going to be as kind as David. And it's kind of a tragic chapter 18 is. But sin always leads to tragedy. And here the tragedy is Ahithophel takes his own life. The tragedy is that Absalom and Amasa are coming to fight family, friends, fellow citizens of the nation of Israel. And it is just a sad, sad thing. And so we'll end a little bit early because we don't want to get into chapter 18. I want to have plenty of time to unfurl and unfold that. But we'll get into that very chapter next time. Hey, thank you for joining us. If you're in the area this weekend, we'd love to have you at 10. We're in the Gospel of Luke. We're in the final week of Christ, and we are looking at how Jesus prophesies about what's going to happen to Jerusalem and ultimately what's going to happen to the world in the end times. And we'll get into that. I believe it's going to be a two-parter, but I haven't quite finished that up. So we'll get into that. And then in the evening, we've got a missionary, and would love for you to come and be a part of those services. Hey, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your love of the Word of God. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll see you next time.